Hi everyone, I hope you guys are all having a great day. Today I am going to do a video where I talk about fiction and nonfiction book pairs. So I have discussed this before on my channel, but I do have a difficult time reading nonfiction because I have a difficult time finishing a book even once I get started and very interested in it. It happens all the time. I get started in a book, I think it's great, and then I put it down and never pick it back up again. But I want to talk about a few nonfiction books that I have enjoyed, some that I plan on reading, and how they correlate to the fiction that I read. So I'm going to pair some fiction and nonfiction books. The first one is one of my favorite books of all time, Wuthering Heights. I'm sure you all know this is a love story, a bit of a tragic, gothic love story written by Emily Bronte. It's fabulous. You should read it. And if you enjoy any of the Bronte books, I think that you might also enjoy Bronte's A Life in Letters. Now, this is one of the ones that I haven't read yet. Maybe I shouldn't have started with this one. But it's basically what it sounds like. This is a book of the letters that the Bronte siblings wrote to each other. I do believe it includes letters from their brother as well as the three sisters. And my sister-in-law gave it to me as a Christmas present a few years ago, and one of the things that we enjoy discussing when we talk about the Bronte sisters is how different Emily seemed from the rest of the family, especially considering Wuthering Heights as opposed to Jane Eyre and the other books. And Rachel felt that Emily Bronte's personality was really well represented in her letters through this book. So I'm very much looking forward to reading it because I love Wuthering Heights so much, and because I also enjoyed Jane Eyre, although not as much as Wuthering Heights. So that's my first nonfiction pairing. The second one is from a book that I read last year that I absolutely adored, The Great Alone. Now, I live here in Alaska. I love reading about Alaska and studying about it. This is probably my favorite fiction book about Alaska so far. It is the story of a young girl who's in the 70s, and her father comes home from Vietnam and he has PTSD. And the family is sort of walking around this. Not much was known about it, and it was more of you swept it under the rug and took care of it in your own home kind of deal, which I'm sure many of us are familiar with. And so he ends up moving the family to Alaska because of a series of events, and this is about their life in Alaska. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. The writing was spotty in a few places, but the characters were brilliant, and I adored the plot. I thought it was very realistic for a book about Alaska, and that is because Kristen Hanna lived here. It is very, very similar to the lives of some of the people that she knew in Alaska, and I think that's one of the reasons that it's so heartfelt and beautiful. Now, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about Alaska, I think that John McPhee's Coming into the Country is a great option for you. This is a book written by a journalist, and he came up to Alaska and spent years sort of exploring and getting to know the place, and the book is broken up into 3 sections. The first section is it's pretty much about a trip that the author took. He and some other scientists and researchers flew up to a river that's completely in the Arctic Circle, and they kayaked down the river for their research, and it's about their experiences up in that northern region of Alaska. The second part is a discussion of city life, basically, in Alaska. More or less, it takes place in the city. It's about Anchorage and Fairbanks and the people who populated those areas and still do. And then the third part is about the bush and people who have gone off to live in the backwoods Alaska, what motivates them, what their lives are like. I thought the first part and the third part were great. I thought the middle was a little boring, but I stuck through because we were moving to Alaska and I wanted to read about it. So overall, I absolutely loved John McPhee's writing style because it's very personable and he just tells some absolutely stunning stories and it captures the heart of Alaska, I think. It is an older book. I think that this was written in... this was published in '76, so there are probably newer books that cover similar topics, but this happens to be the one that I read, and I thought it was great. Next, we have another book that is a classic that I thoroughly enjoyed, is Anna Karenina, and if I'm saying that wrong, oh well, by Leo Tolstoy. This is sort of a love story. You know what I'm talking about if you've read it. And I would definitely recommend it to anybody who enjoys classics. I think it is well worth the read. I think Tolstoy is a master storyteller, great characterization, and he does an excellent job of the characterization between the social classes and the different views on what it means to be Russian. I know that he focuses on similar things in War and Peace, but I haven't read all of War and Peace yet, so I didn't choose War and Peace. Now, the nonfiction book that I'm pairing with that is Natasha's Dance, A Cultural History of Russia. I have not finished this. I read to about the point where I lost interest for a little while. But what I did read was entertaining, well written, and they did a very good job of explaining what Tolstoy is writing about in War and Peace and in Anna Karenina and everything else that he writes, basically. And it obviously takes a look at many of the other Russian authors, a slightly detailed Russian history as well, and how Russia's place in the world influenced what it meant to be Russian and how that has changed and developed over time. Now, obviously, it's called Natasha's Dance. Natasha is a character in War and Peace. She dances. So War and Peace would be a great pairing for this. But as I said, I haven't finished the book yet, so I chose Anna Karenina because I have finished it and enjoyed it. My final pairing is a recent read. Recently I read Transcription by Kate Atkinson, and I did enjoy it. I thought that the first half was really well done, but I didn't like the second half of the book. For various reasons, you can go and take a look at my discussion on this book if you are interested. But it is a spy book, and a lot of the plot centers around the Cambridge spies, which were a group of British spies who were actually Russian agents. And I didn't know anything about that, which made the book a little confusing for me. So I decided I wanted to go and learn a little bit more about that. And one of the books that I stumbled upon while I was looking for nonfiction books about this was a book called Stalin's Englishman, which is about one of the Cambridge spies in particular and how he interacted in his life as a double agent. I don't know if I'm using that term correctly. That's what I would call them because, the only thing I know about spies come from James Bond movies. So maybe I'm going to read Stalin's Englishman and maybe learn a little bit more about it. I am very interested in this book because one of the difficulties I had with Transcription was that the ending fell flat for me because I didn't have any idea of the historical background that this was based off of. So I want to learn a little bit more about that, and then hopefully that will give me a little bit of perspective on what Kate Atkinson is actually writing about. I did ask David for some of his fiction and nonfiction pair recommendations because he reads much more nonfiction than I do, but he was a little fussy about giving me any because I sort of sprang the question on him and he didn't have time to think about it. So hopefully I will be able to do another video where I discuss some of his nonfiction and nonfiction pairings. If you guys have any fiction and nonfiction pairings, I would love for you to leave them in the comments below. That would be awesome. And I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks. Bye.